let's talk about that. Something new. We've been testing these tires for a couple of years now. We finally got a chance to actually use them. As you mentioned, Brandon, not rain tires, wet weather tires. The purpose isn't to be able to race in the rain on the short ovals, at least not yet. We'll see if the technology gets there one day. But as of right now, we have the ability to shorten the delay process in terms of, the track not being entirely completely dry, but still damp enough with the rain not coming down that we can put wet weather tires on these cars and they can go out there and race. So something new for the Cup Series. I think we saw it in trucks at Martinsville last year and got to test that out a little bit. But first time for the Cup cars, and then with that, a competition caution after 30 laps. And then NASCAR made the executive decision that the track had gone from wet to dry and the teams would be forced to put on slicks. They couldn't choose where the crossover point would be like we see in Formula One, and that goes to the no competitive pit stops point like you were bringing up, Brandon. So what were your thoughts on the procedure here with this wet weather start, and should NASCAR treat it like a road course or like a Formula One race where they put it in the hands of the teams, or were you okay with them making the decision since this was the first time and a new experience for everybody?
I think while it's still early, it's good that NASCAR sets it where they all have to use it. And listen, you can make fun of it all you want, and you can, purists can scoff at anything rain and tire and wet weather and NASCAR put together. All I know is cars were on track when they normally wouldn't be, and we got racing going when it normally wouldn't have happened. This is near light inventing the light bulb level for NASCAR to be able to do this, and I applaud them for doing the testing they had to do with Goodyear, getting this going to where we can go to a place like Richmond. Not the high banks of Bristol like we almost got. Thank goodness St. Patrick's Day weekend wasn't wet on Sunday, but going to Richmond, being able to be on track, and had a really good product there, like Joe said. For they held up for 30 laps, and they dried out pit road, so we would be able to have competitive pit stops. But even if we weren't going to be able to have competitive pit stops, I'm still glad that we were able to just get cars out on the track. And also, when they were on the wet weather tires, there was a lot closer racing, at Richmond, which is kind of uncharacteristic of the place. And I don't know if that's more because of the grip of the tire, or just the cautiousness of the drivers, or maybe a little bit of both. But I was really surprised that we didn't just have some sort of cluster out into turn 3, thinking they're finally confident on it, and then just we get like a big one at Richmond somehow, just because there's a wet spot that they didn't realize, or everyone decided to not go offline. There's not much place to go offline at Richmond. It's pretty small, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah, well, certainly an interesting lastcar.info article this week, because to that point, Brandon, the last place finisher, Corey LaJoie, running at the finish only, I think, 3 laps down at the end of it. I mean, for a Richmond race, certainly,
Yeah.
Very, very low attrition. Yeah, 404 laps, just double checking here, to Denny Hamlin's 407, and all 36 cars running at the finish. So a very clean race. And certainly, you wouldn't be surprised if we saw the opposite of that, given that, these guys have never done this before. But, they say these are the best stock car drivers in the world. And I think for once we actually saw proof of that. Sometimes, we question that a little bit when we see how many overtime restarts we get at tracks like Daytona and Talladega. But credit to the Cup guys. They certainly adapted very, very well, and I think put on a great show. And, I think it is very encouraging to see that, given that this was a new product for everybody. And now I think it gives NASCAR more confidence that we can, be confident in trying this out again when the opportunity comes up at some of the shorter ovals where they've tested these tires.
Also, Ben, I wanted to touch on this before we miss it. We were talking about something Jayski put out before the broadcast. He said this is the only the second time since 2004. Oh, we got an overtime finish for this race, but before Richmond, this is only the second. It was only the second time since 2004, when the overtime rule was instituted in the middle of that season, that there has not been an overtime finish in the first 6 Cup races of the year. And even going back to last season, he says the last 9 Cup races, had not had an overtime finish. And I just can't say how surprised I am enough that the overtime finish came at a place like Richmond, of all places. That's just funny how that works.
I'm certainly not going to complain. I share your surprised reaction there to that stat. I think it's probably because you and I normally cover Xfinity trucks and ARCA, where we get. I mean,
we're always talking overtime finishes.
We usually get one of those every week with one of those series.
That's how the truck series operates, is with overtime finishes.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the PTSD starting to kick in from Phoenix last year. I mean, we had more overtime finishes in that one race than we might see in the Cup Series the entire year at this rate that we're going here. But
man,
no, in all
I wanted them to quit. I just wanted them to quit.
Even the flagman wanted them to quit that night, I think.